Hello and welcome to this mid-morning taste challenge. I have two Indiana rye whiskeys. They're made in Indiana. Now but they're not promoted like that. But this is the 90 proof Ezra Brooks straight rye whiskey aged in new charred American oak. It would have to be new oak for it to be even a rye whiskey, but straight rye, it's aged at least 2 years, and that's what it says on the back, aged 24 months, 2 years. You can see all the tape I put on the label. The label was deteriorated so bad, and this was only introduced 7 years ago. It's not like it's been on the market 30 years. I don't know what the story was behind it, but I saw it in the liquor store in Belle Chase, Louisiana. It looked terrible. They had no tag on the shelf, and I took it to the counter and I asked the guy, I said, well, what's the price on this? And I could see his eyes. He could see how terrible it looked. He said, how about $9? I said, okay, you got it. I could see it wasn't opened or anything. It had the paper shroud still on it. So came home and I taped it up. First I cleaned it with warm water and soap, let it dry for a few days, and I taped up the labels, make it look presentable. So it's 90 proof. Like I said, introduced in 1997, although Ezra Brooks, this brand was established in 1957. It's bottled in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, but it's actually from Indiana, okay? I put the website link below. They say that it's 51% rye, the minimum, 45% corn, and 4% malted barley. So 4% of this is barley whiskey, single malt, like they would call it, single malt whiskey in Scotland, but only 4%. So that's going to give it maybe a little breadiness. It's almost half corn, 45% corn, and 51% rye. So it's got a real cap, real cork, traditional American style rye whiskey. They don't really promote this anymore. And in fact, I was looking at product specifications. It appears it's only an export these days. They've de-emphasized it and have largely focused on the 99 proof rye, which is a different mash bill, and the 7-year old Ezra rye, neither of which I've ever tried. But anyway, I found it, I bought it, I figured, right. Technically still made, but probably in a very small volume. Okay, here's George Dickel rye. This is a high volume rye. There's a lot of these made. You can find it at most liquor stores. Also 90 proof, also from the same distillery in Indiana, Midwest Grain Products. Formerly the Seagram's distillery, and still has Seagram's on the buildings. Probably too expensive to remove the paint. This is produced for George Dickel. They send it down to Kentucky where they bottle it. They charcoal mellow it, let it drip through charcoal, and then they bottle it, okay? George Dickel established 1870. So it's one of their brands, but it's actually not made by them. It's just made for them. Contract distilling, it's a common thing. If you think it's not, you don't know, you need to learn. It's common. There's a neoprene stopper, plastic cap, so, kind of cheap. I got this one for $12.50. That was not a plan. I didn't say, let me go try to find the two cheapest rye whiskeys I can find. That was not a plan. It's just I stumbled upon it. I went to Walmart to buy probably onions and breakfast cereal, but usually I'll pass by the liquor section just to see. 99, not 99, but 70% of the time I don't buy anything. 80% of the time it's embossed label, like clear glass embossed, nice looking bottle, 750 milliliters. But I was over there, and lo and behold, they had George Dickel, the number 12, Superior number 12, which is all gone now from me. But I bought that bottle, $12.50. They also had the George Dickel rye, $12.50. Of course, I bought it because that's about half price. So at $25, it's not expensive. It's a normal price, but for $12.50, that's the deal. $9, that's the deal. This runs about $18, assuming you can find it, and chances are you won't be able to. It's got a plastic shroud, a real cork, real cork. Real hunk of cork. So Midwest Grain Products, they distill a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And I don't know if they did that when Seagram's owned it, but they probably did, because a lot of these big companies do overflow production for other people, even if it's their competitor. In fact, that's better if it's their competitor, because it puts them under their control, you see, because they get in the habit of it's always coming in, and then they'll be like, what's the problem? Well, maybe we can't make it, so it's like, that's why Pabst got so angry with Miller, Molson Coors, because they said that they were trying to bring them under their thumb, and they were this was Pabst's contention. I don't know what the real story was. They claimed that they were intentionally lowering production for the Pabst products and making things difficult for them. And then Miller, Molson Coors said, no, we weren't. We put you at the end of the line, of course, because we're going to make our own products first. Common sense. When we have extra time at the end of the week, we'll make the Pabst stuff. But then you're overly demanding and you make all these crazy requests. But they both claiming they were right. They went to court, and right before the trial started up, they settled out of court. So then Pabst went off and got a different supplier, which is City Brewing. And I have a lot of questions about that. The new Schlitz is, I got a whole 12-pack I got to work through. It's not too enjoyable. I got to admit, I'm just going to admit it. I don't hate it, but it seemed like it's not as good as when Miller was making it at the Miller Brewery in Texas and in Milwaukee. Okay, now, but these are contract brewed, distilled, I mean. Man, you can go find so many MGP products. It's amazing. They do so much contract for people. And they make their own products too. If you ever see Uncle Remus, that's MGP. And then Aviator or something is called Aviation Gin. I think Aviation Gin is MGP. So they make their own brands, and they bought Luxco. They own Luxco now. The Lux family sold it. Lux, Lux. They sold it. I don't know why. Guess the money was right. People getting old, and the younger people don't want to run it. That story. So about 4 years ago, MGP bought Luxco. So this is made by MGP. So yeah, it's not a contract. It's not contract distilled anymore because they own it. You can't make something for yourself and call it you're making it for yourself because you own yourself. All right, you know what I'm saying in a roundabout way. It's just made by them at a different distillery, but it's the same parent company. Okay, Diageo owns George Dickel this day and age. They bought George Dickel. Still a distillery, but for whatever reason, they don't choose to make rye whiskey there. It's probably cheaper and easier to get it made across the river in Indiana, and that's what they do. And it's not a problem because it tastes good. Okay, so how is a 95% rye going to stack up against a 51%? You would think it should be a mismatch, but time will tell. Oh man, I didn't pour it quite right. Well, that's not too far off. What I mean is one is a little bit more, but that's not going to make too much weight. Sometimes the weight, you could tell by the weight. Of course, in this case, it doesn't matter because I don't remember which is which. I didn't bother looking at them. One is a little darker. This one is a little darker. I mean, just a little bitty bit. So here we go. Smell like rye whiskey. Minty rye bread. If you ever had a Reuben sandwich, which I love. Cheers to the delicatessens. The place of delight. And the same thing here, but this one is a little more bready and musty and fermented aroma. Okay. Different. They look like different size bottles, don't they? But they're the same size. Same volume. Yeah, this is more pronounced rye aroma. So it must be the Dickel because it's a higher percentage of rye, 95 versus 51. So let's taste it. Oh yeah, important distinction. Ezra Brooks is straight rye. George Dickel is only listed as rye whiskey. No straight. And no E. Now, strange, isn't it? It's got no age statement, so we know it's aged at least 4 years. It's got no age statement. We know it's aged at least 4 years. But it's not listed as straight rye, which is actually a higher grade. This is only aged 2 years, but it is listed as straight rye. What's the story on this? Here's my answer. I think they're adding flavoring to this. Go look up your specs. If you look at the Tax and Trade Bureau website, the governing body over alcohol in the United States, they tell you that rye whiskey is allowed to have flavoring and coloring added. Flavoring and coloring added. And they do not have to disclose it. If you read the regs, it says disclosure required. The check mark or the X, they use an X. No. They're not listing it as straight rye. They just say rye. You ever notice that about George Dickel products? It'll say number 8, Superior number 12. It'll just say whiskey. Tennessee whiskey does not say straight whiskey. And they have this peculiar flavor. I said, oh, but there's no age statement, so we know they're aged at least 2 years. But now I'm saying, oh, they're adding flavoring. And they're not violating the law because that is allowed. It's allowed, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. Would I rather it be straight whiskey with no flavor and no coloring? Yeah, I would. If you want to be sure about that, just find any whiskey that says straight. Then you'd be okay. Because straight whiskey can never have coloring or flavoring added. Or find bottled and bond, which is it's a form of straight whiskey at 100 proof with some other regulations on it. Even more regulation. Yeah, it tastes rye. I'm not picking up that Flintstone vitamin today that I usually get with the Dickel. Tastes like Flintstone vitamin, like they literally took Flintstone vitamins, let it soak in the whiskey. Well now. I don't know. But there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of sweet corn here. Like candy corn. You know, you get the candy corn for Halloween. I don't like it either, but I don't really like candy at all, no matter what brand it is. But it's kind of weird. And the candy corn probably contains no corn at all, except for maybe corn syrup, which is a corn product. Yeah. This must be the Ezra Brooks, just due to that sweet corn flavor, which I like sweet corn. Yeah. See, the proof won't matter. 90-90, 45% alcohol versus 45. Same distillery, Indiana, MGP. So got to look for the differences, which is the aging, at least 4 years over here, and exactly 2 years here. We know exactly 2 years says it. It says age 24 months. It's 24 months a young whiskey. It is young, but it's allowed to be straight whiskey. I see a lot of people doing videos and they'll say, well, straight whiskey has to be aged at least 4 years. Nope. Sorry, that's not the rule. It's 2. I know that's short, but that's the law. I didn't make the law. Whether it's rye or bourbon or wheat whiskey, etc., if it says straight whiskey, the minimum is 2 years, and that is not a long time. I mean, really, when you think about it, the restrictions for whiskey is not that strict. To be a straight whiskey, what does it have to be? At least 80 proof, age at least 2 years in new barrels, new whether it's charred, because if it's straight corn whiskey, it's uncharred barrels, oak, and no coloring or flavoring. That's it. Simple. It takes no effort not to add coloring or flavoring. It takes effort to do it. So that's you skipping a step. You don't have to add any coloring or flavoring. Stick it in a new barrel for 2 years. You got it. You got it, man. It's rye. Straight rye whiskey. In this case, rye whiskey. But at least you know it's not played with. It's not played with coloring or flavoring. Here we don't know, and it has to be. Why would? I mean, what would be the reason for not calling it straight? Now I have a bourbon that says bourbon whiskey. It's aged 3 years. Doesn't say straight. Now that I can't figure out. Now I'll be honest, I cannot figure that out. Because it doesn't say anything about flavoring at it. And bourbon is very strict. Now for bourbon, it's even stricter. You cannot add flavoring or color into bourbon. Simple as that. You can't do it. Comma, unless you want to sell, see what I mean? There's always an exception. Comma, unless you want to sell it as bourbon with natural flavors and caramel color, which you can do. Not a flavored bourbon. It's not even a true bourbon. It's a bourbon specialty. But it would be in the bourbon section. But you got to have a disclosure on it. It's got to say with natural flavors, caramel color. Can't be all secretive like with this Dickel now. Which one tastes better? They're the same. Either or. I have no favorite. Which one would I buy? Whatever one was cheaper. And if it was a penny, I'd save the penny and buy it. It's as simple as that. I'd buy either or, anytime, anywhere. Whatever one's cheaper, I'm on it. So I take issue with either one. No way. Does the aging seem to matter here? No, not really. To be honest with you. It's a 2-year difference at least. Doesn't seem to matter. But you would think the difference in mash bill would matter so much, like 95% rye, 51% rye. How could you ever confuse the two? I don't know, but I'm not really tasting that profound of a difference. I mean, you would think it would be just like a snap and you had it, but that's not the case. I think this is the Ezra Brooks just by virtue of it seems to have a sweet corn flavor. That could be a psychosomatic thing. Like I could just be influencing myself. You know what I mean? The power of suggestion onto my own psychological profile. But it is. I got it right. So yeah, okay. That one little clue. Guess it wasn't that little of a clue. There's 45% corn versus 0 corn. This has 0 corn. 0 corn. It's only rye and malt. Barley, malted barley, 5% malted barley, 95% rye. So yeah, okay. But it was not that easy. Actually, it wasn't really easy at all. So I plan to do more rye whiskey taste challenges. Definitely. I'm going to do all the MGP products that I have. So I got the Dickel, that's done. I've got the Templeton 4-year, the 4-year. There's others. You say Templeton, that's in Iowa. That's Iowa, man. You're so dumb. That's Iowa. Yeah, you might want to check the back label. You might want to check the back of that bottle. It says distilled in Indiana. There's your answer. Midwest grain. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay, so that's coming up. I think that one is another weird one like Dickel. Does not say straight rye. Could it have possibly flavor? I didn't say it. I asked the question. I didn't say it. Well, of course, then we'll be going off to other projects. Sazerac rye, aged at least 6 years. Not specifically 6 years. They told me on the phone, but at least 6 years. Could be longer, but at least six. Uh, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Rye, introduced in 2017, also just like this one. Also now barely found, but still around. Still a website listing, but barely. But yeah, still exists. Uh, Jim Beam Prohibition, pre-prohibition rye, still a website listing. A lot of people are saying it's been discontinued, but they're not. The company's not saying that, even though they're not even listing the new rye, which is kind of like the old rye. But that's another story. Winchester rye, I got that from Kentucky. Aged at least 1 year. How you like that? 1 year. Oh boy, it's actually pretty good. You'd think, oh, 1 year, that's trash. That was what I thought. This will be trash, but it actually tastes pretty good. And there's probably a couple I'm forgetting. And then, oh yeah, Woodford Reserve, another one from Brown Forman. That's a high rock. That's I think a high rye mash bill. Couldn't have been around before '96 because Woodford Reserve didn't exist till '96. I know it's some old company that they resurrected the name. You know how that works, but actually wasn't produced until 28 years ago. Woodford Reserve rye. Oh, you won't believe the price I got for that. It was just amazing. I was amazed when I bought it, and I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed. It's not like Paul McCartney, and maybe I'm amazed. No, I'm literally amazed. But I found it. We bought it. We had to buy it. Jack Daniels was cheap too. Both times. And then I've got some Canadians. David Arthur, Will. Perfect segue. Hello, David. Hi, Ron, buddy. He's in Canada, the Dominion of Canada. I found two Canadian rye whiskeys. I found Alberta Premium 80 proof, which is 100% rye. True story. 100% rye. To me, it's a little bland, but yeah, but it's interesting. And then I have the here's one that you don't see often, but it exists. But try finding it. Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye. I'll say it again. Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye. You didn't know that Crown Royal made a rye whiskey, did you? I didn't know it either till I ran across it. Amazing. And when I tell you the price I found, it's like, oh, you can't believe it. 95% rye. And it's made in Manitoba, one of the provinces, Canadian provinces. 90 proof, I think? 45% alcohol. Might be higher, I can't remember. But oh man, that's the best. Really, that's the best one so far. Now, my friend David found the Canadian Club 100% rye. Oh, that's a really wonderful product. Yeah, I do plan to buy it, but I got too much backstock of rye right now. I got a Scottish high rye whiskey, 60% rye, so it's a true rye whiskey. I got to bring that in. So yeah, we'll get to those. The Ezra Brooks 7-year, Ezra Brooks 99, the Canadian Club 100% rye. I would like to try all of those. It's just a matter of time and fitting it in and everything. Yes, sir, my friend. How are you doing today, Ron? But I'm fine. About to go cut the grass. Talk to you later. All right. So see. All right. Well, the winner. Can't say. I got it right. I could tell them apart barely. I could tell them apart. The winner, they're both winners. Yeah, they're both winners. Either way you go, you win here, no doubt. It's a winning proposition. Ezra Brooks, straight rye. You have a hard time finding it, but like me, you might run across it on an obscure shelf in a liquor store. And the Dickel rye, you'll have no trouble finding that. That's common. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Bye.